Hello, I'm Jason Solomons, and welcome to Seen Any Good Films Lately, the awards season podcast still reeling from the slap heard around the world.
Wow! Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
There are so many takes on what happened at the Oscars. I will weigh in with mine, and...
It's the bad guys!
Arrest them!
They stole the golden dolphin!
Come on, you can't prove that.
The Bad Guys hits the big screen, and we hear from its director, Pierre Perifel. He's French, in case you were wondering. It's Seen Any Good Films Lately. So, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, and it was a shock. It never looked like a stage slap to me. I was watching with some fine Academy members at Claridge's, Must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning at this point, and boy, did that wake us up. I've never seen anything like that. And then the whole carrying on after, in a numbed, almost catatonic state, as if we'd all been slapped. Will Smith actually getting up and doing an acceptance speech. That was too bizarre. I'm not here to tell you what should and shouldn't happen in the fallout from it all. Some people think it's great that Will defended his wife's honour. Some feel it's a race matter, it's a betrayal of black male behaviour. A few minutes later, in the In Memoriam segment, there was a giant picture of the late Sidney Poitier looming over all proceedings. And I just thought, well, he'd be turning in his grave at all this. His entire career being about non-violence and dignity and righteous anger channeled into words. They call me Mr. Tibbs and all of that. I know how he'd have felt about the whole thing. Some feel comedians should be able to say their jokes without impunity. What, even the bad jokes? Even ones 25 years out of date? Me, I was gutted for Questlove, whose big black moment was overshadowed. He won for Summer of Soul and paid tribute to fellow nominee Stanley Nelson in his film Attica. Oh my, and that would have been amazing with Chris Rock giving out that award. A huge moment for black marginalisation, which is what Summer of Soul was all about. The thing is, the Oscars has become a shambles, and that was way before Will Smith made it chaos. And maybe that is why we're here, why we're at where we're at. The general theme these days is that a host at these award ceremonies must take the piss, must defeat the pomposity and the loveliness of award ceremonies, even while the whole point is to be celebrating the art and the artists that we're applauding. You know what? I watch the Oscars because I love movies, not because I love TV shows, and not because I hate everyone involved in them and I want to see them squirm. No. The BAFTAs are the same, even worse, with that dreadful Rebel Wilson and her sexist, self-involved awfulness and crass jokes. The fact that Chris Rock's bad bald gag wasn't funny is the whole reason we're here now, because it wasn't funny. Taking the piss started with Ricky Gervais at the Globes, and it's got worse and worse and worse and less funny, until no one watches anymore. And until someone does one last gag that isn't funny, and they get smacked in the mouth. That's where we got to. And if no one's watching these TV shows anymore, which everyone's sort of saying, oh no, there's no ratings, they're terrible, no one watches it. Well, isn't that the right time to rip up the old rule book and reset the dial? I say no one's watching. I mean, it's like 20 million people, which isn't bad. And what are we celebrating anyway? We're celebrating Netflix shows and Apple TV shows. Coda and The Power of the Dog, that's where they're on. The lines got so blurred, it's time to redraw the thing and celebrate movies. We don't take the mickey out of the Super Bowl or the FA Cup final or the World Cup final. We don't do jokes before Wimbledon, do we? No, we applaud top sports people at the top of their game. It's time to remember that. Take it seriously. Get some classiness back into the whole film awards game. Remember why we love movies. It's not for smart-ass roasting and simmering resentment and snippy envy from the presenters on the stage. It's just not funny. And so you end up with someone getting punched. There was another slap in the face on the night to Netflix when Coda took the Best Picture crown. Well done to them. I mean, all of that, the sight of the whole room applauding in sign language and waving their wrists in unison, that's how you communicate with your hands. That was an uplifting sight. I loved that. I'm a fan of Coda. I've been telling you this on the show for weeks and told you to watch out for it. It's the little film that could. Is it the best film? Is it better than West Side Story, Parallel Mothers, Hand of God, Worst Person in the World, Drive My Car, Summer of Soul? No, it's not. Surely not. But it has got heart and soul, and it's got love in buckets, and that's why it won. That stuff still counts in the movies. It made me cry, Coda, and sometimes that's why we go to the cinema. If we did go to the cinema for Coda, which I didn't, I saw it at home, but I did cry. Well, we can go to the cinema now. It is re-releasing there, and you should go and cheer it on. But come on, Academy. You know, there was so much there that I wanted to see. Denzel Washington giving out the honorary Oscar to Samuel L. Jackson. I'd have paid to see that. To see Elaine May clips. Liv Ullmann rewarded. To revel in the rich history of the movies. That's what we're there for. Rather than what you did, which was have Wanda Sykes wander around your new museum in Hollywood, taking the piss out of all the exhibits. So what you're doing is you're taking the piss out of yourselves and her own dumb persona. So no wonder we get to a stage where a guy who's worked his arse off for over 30 years to get to this crowning glory moment, from doing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to I Am Legend to Hitch and everything that he's had to jump through, just as he's got to the summit in his sights, Will Smith, some arsehole comes on, and instead of praising you and respecting your life's work and the heartfelt performance you did into hitting King Richard onto the screen and playing Richard Williams, some bloke comes on and takes the piss out of your wife's hair loss. Well, no wonder he smacks the shit out of you. So to awards shows, I say let's just remember what we're here for and start again loving the movies. Well, it's been a pleasure covering awards season this year for you on Seen Any Good Films Lately, from the Biffers and the European Film Awards last year, that was the end of last year, to the BAFTAs and the Oscars just in recent weeks. We've had some winners on the show in Ariana DeBose and Questlove, and some top nominees in Jonas Rasmussen with Flea, and Andrea Arnold with Cow, and Boiling Point's Jason Fleming, and Phil Barattini who directed it. And there was Polystyrene's Celeste Bell, and Sweetheart's Nell Barlow, and the gang from The Worst Person in the World. Terrific films, terrific performances, and terrific work from all of those people. Don't take the piss out of them, do we? Well, anyway, now it's done. Let's get on with some fun stuff that you don't get in awards season, and have a good look at a cartoon.
Hey, look, it's a cat stuck in a tree.
It doesn't get much simpler than that. Now, what in this scenario would give you that good tingle?
Eating it? This is why I always carry 2 pieces of bread with me.
No, I want you to
Smack it.
Skin it, stab it.
Saute.
Sing to it.
save it. I want you to set this off so obvious. I want you to save it.
Oh, right. Whoa, that cat is obviously defective.
Yeah, The Bad Guys is out just in time for the Easter holidays, and I know kids will love it. It's fast and furious. It's a caper cartoon with lots of fart gags and silly car chases about a bunch of robbers, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Snake, Mr. Piranha, Mr. Shark, and Miss Tarantula, who are convinced to go straight by an evil billionaire guinea pig. I told you it was a cartoon. It riffs on loads of heist movies. It's all directed by the most French cartoon person sounding French cartoon person, Pierre Perifel, who's got together a superb and diverse voice cast, including Sam Rockwell, Awkwafina, Craig Robinson from Hot Tub Time Machine, Anthony Ramos from In the Heights, Zazie Beetz, and Richard Ayoade. He plays the evil guinea pig, of course, because he's English. So much did I admire this cast that I'd kind of like to have watched them do the live-action version. You can on Twitter, actually. You can see them doing a table read, and they're all there if you follow Pierre Perifel on Twitter. So when I did speak to Pierre, I asked him if it was important for him to get diversity into the casting, even if it was for a cartoon, and even if it was just via the voices.
The first instincts, first of all, is to get the right voice for the character that you're creating, you know. But it turned out that we had that kind of diversity in our cast. So it really was, first of all, thinking of the characters and the story, and then later on, bringing up that diversity, because again, we're talking like the message of the film is all about, the stereotyping and all, and I think it fits so well, just to be able to have a cast that is representing that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, you might not notice it, and I hope kids who watch it, my kids, for example, won't notice that, but that it'll come in somehow. I think it's really important what you've done there. I think it's the most diverse cast I can think of, but it doesn't become the issue of the movie because we're watching a cartoon. So
of course. No, but I think it's fantastic, to Just making sure that we have that diversity is so important.
I hope you don't mind, Pierre, that I call it a cartoon, because I know that you're an animator and I know that
Yeah.
you studied this. But when I was growing up, cartoons were the best thing. Cartoons were what I went to the cinema, what I spent Saturday morning on the TV watching. And your film really threw me back to those cartoon specials that I watched, the kind of peak era Hanna-Barbera kind of style involved. I was wondering if that was something that you were trying to evoke. It felt quite 70s to me.
No, I think you're right. I think there is there is that will to actually stylize those characters more than what we tend to see, more traditionally these days. Frankly, a lot of it is just the 2 dot for the pupils. Nowadays, it's like super detailed irises and stuff.
Yeah, like in Canto, it's like the glasses and the
exactly.
eyes, everything. But this is,
and the brows are super dynamic. We have those
every hair, yeah.
And that's very reminiscent of actual sketches, actual drawings, from the traditional days. And I think that's something that I really was caring for. We definitely played with the time period. Even though it's supposed to happen nowadays, I think we definitely played with it a little bit.
No, I like that retro feel. Even the score by Daniel Pemberton, which I know you came here to Abbey Road to record.
Yeah, we recorded with Daniel in Abbey Road. Yeah,
that's not bad.
No, it's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
And he was, I mean, it's quite full of wah-wah and funky grooves and sort of Starsky and Hutch kind of style. I was reminded of Gone in 60 Seconds, the original Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, and that's definitely what was his influences as well for Daniel. Daniel is absolutely incredible. It's so good. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, that Tarantino vibe, and Tarantino doesn't really do score. It just uses like all that 70s, flavored music.
Source music, yeah.
Just lays out those needle drops throughout his movies. That's kind of what I pitched Daniel at first. It's like, this is what I want. He's like, well, it's, you might need a score. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Just whatever you want, man. And, but he totally got the idea. And he was like, first of all, it's a heist movie, but I don't want to do just a simple classic heist score, heist movie score, because those are like sometimes a little bit more subdued, just a bit more like a groovy type of jazz. And he wanted also, he really wanted something energetic, and that's what I wanted as well, So he referenced a lot of the, 60s, 70s kind of, like you said, rock / funk, and just roll with it, But his music is so layered with so many things, because he's able to have like that instrumental feel, like very symphonic orchestra, and on top of it, he would add electric guitars and drums, and you're like it's such an interesting mix. But he's a genius that way. I mean, just seeing him record in Abbey Road is just one of the highlights of the whole project.
No, I'm really pleased to see him doing this and animation, because I've seen him do documentaries, I've seen him do big films, little films. He'll sort of do what he likes, Daniel.
He does, yeah. He just chooses what his heart tells him to choose, but he doesn't. Yeah, that's, I think, what is the most attracted to is like new things, like new exciting projects. I think when we met the first time, that's what he was really attracted to was, oh wow, Pierre is trying to do something different. I like that. Let's do it. And that was great, because he wanted to do something different too. And so he was like, free range, just go for it. I trust you, man. And he's got such an incredible mind where he can write this incredible music, but also really understand narration, like story.
Tell me a little secret about when you're casting the voice for this amazing cast. I mean, if you had them in real life, like the Ocean's 11 cast, you have to get them all together, and you need one like that, because that's what you're like, oh, I need it. I got some great characters. I need some great voices. Is it as hard in voiceover work, in animation, to get these big stars, Sam Rockwell, that sort of big star, and Richard Ayoade from here? Is it as hard to get them to do voiceover work, to assemble that cast together? Is it, or I mean, what's the days that you need, and how do you choose it yourself, and who's available?
I mean, that's the great thing about just working for DreamWorks, is that the sky's the limit kind of thing. You can go for A-listers, and they would do it for you, which is incredible. When you're at that level, you're just incredibly talented. And that's what we wanted. We wanted some incredibly talented people just to do the voice of these characters, because, like, don't be mistaken, like, voice acting is very, very hard, obviously, because you have to put so much in your voice and be able to put so much, and you don't have your body to just support your performance. So it's very complex. The idea was, okay, well, we want actors that are not, your kind of usual suspects for a heist movie. We could have gone like Ocean Eleven's type of
Good
cast.
use of usual suspects there as well. Also referencing heist movies.
By the
Very
way,
clever,
usual
Pierre.
suspects is a great reference.
Il
that we
arrête pas
used
ce
to-
mec-là, rien.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was finding a cast that was supporting each character so well, but at the same time was very varied and cool, and not again seen everywhere. Just wanted like new up and coming talents, and you wanted some a bit more established, but also not as familiar with the animation scene. And so it takes a long time just to kind of go through that. And we don't do auditions, we really just select, a few of the people we're thinking about, and then you do some of those like editing of voice, samples of what they've done.
Oh, I see. So you like got you get let's watch Ebbing.
Let's watch it.
3 Billboards and see how Sam Rockwell's voice fits on it.
Exactly.
How
And
cool.
like let's do that, cut that against an image of your character and see if that works. And then you approach them. And then Sam was the first one we approached, and Sam said yes really quickly to the pitch. He loved the idea, and so
Did you tell him that he would be confused for George Clooney in the script?
No, but that's the thing. The idea was to not do George Clooney. It was
Because he's a silver fox, of course, a silver wolf.
Yeah.
Look,
That's
I'm
right,
I I get confused for George quite a lot myself. You can check him out.
with your right here. Yeah. But yeah, the idea was to just not do exactly George Clooney. Obviously, I wanted to do something different. And Sam has that incredible range. He can do whatever he wants. And just getting him to be vulnerable, to be raw, to be funny, to be a bit of a goofball. And he brought all of this. He actually referenced more Jack Nicholson than anything else. He was like, I want to give that flew over a cuckoo's nest feel. That rawness and which is great because it's supposed to be the big bad wolf, and so he brought all of this. But then when Sam got in, like the rest of the cast, once we saw them, we're like, yeah, of course, we just love the project. Sam said, yes, let's do this.
Tell me about some of the films. Did you watch some live action heist movies to take some references from? I mean, I spotted a few, but I'm going to ask you, what your favorite
For
songs
sure.
you watched.
We ended up not watching too much, but more like playing it from memory, kind of thing, because you grow up with those films. I mean, the very first one that came to mind for me when I saw, the books in the first script was Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction,
Good.
Kill Bill. There was some Kill Bill for some reason. Quickly, that moved into Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and then Ocean franchise, Italian Job, The Sting, and then that moved into Baby Driver.
I thought Baby Driver and The Sting were in there.
Oh, of
too.
course.
Yeah.
Totally. And then definitely Mission Impossible, James Bond, It's kind of the panel, But when I say it moved into, it's because it started really by that first image was Reservoir Dogs. Blues Brothers was a lot of it in there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, good. I got those right. But I'm wondering, Monsieur Perifel, you're obviously French. I'm wondering if you managed to get some French heist movies in there. Maybe Refifi, maybe
there was a lot of that. Funny enough, I was not so familiar with them. And weirdly, my influences from French was the Besson imagery that, like, what came for this movie was more like Besson, like The Professional and Nikita and those, and The Fifth Element for its goofiness, which I didn't expect that to just, but Luc Besson is so clean in the way he frames these things, almost animation, and Pierre Jeunet, same thing. It's very clean. And I grew up with those more than the older, French wave. And so that kind of what came out, but yes, definitely. He was, like it's a massive heist movie that heavily referenced to, for sure.
Cool. I mean, you're a Frenchman, and your animation school was in France. How did you end up in the studios in Hollywood? What's a nice French boy like you doing in a place like that?
Like that, yeah. The school that I went to is called Le Gobelin, so it's in Paris. A lot of students from this school actually ended up at the time being in Emblemation in London, working with Steven Spielberg, and then when he and Jeffrey created DreamWorks, all of those guys just moved to LA. One of the, more prominent animator, Christophe Serrand, had to, he became a head of animation there and just started just creating, just building the teams of animation over in LA. And then because he was a student or alumni of that school, he just started tapping into the school and just creating that relationship between the studio and the school. And when I finished my studies, I had done that movie called The Building, and DreamWorks called me, to ask me, if I wanted to work over there in LA, and kind of I couldn't do it right away, but just a few years later, they just kind of offered it again, and I was ready to go. But because I wanted to try a kind of an adventure abroad with my family and everything. So that's how I ended up there. And it was supposed to be just let's go for a couple of years and just come back.
And now you have American kids, I take it. I mean, if you have
yes, absolutely, yes,
amazing. The history of it all is great, and I'm glad that we talked about some of those heist movies. But I'm going to just ask you very quickly: do you have any film posters on your wall?
I have one. And it's My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, the Ghibli.
Yeah, Ghibli, yeah.
Did you have posters when you were a kid, when you were growing up?
Let me think. Not really, actually. I was more on my back, or on my sketch pad than on in front of the TV.
What was the first movie you saw at the cinema?
The very first one, I think it was Snow White.
Ah, me too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think it was Snow White, yeah.
But
the first that I can remember.
And what's the best the best movie that sort of changed your life, that made you want to do what you do now?
In animation?
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it was a live action one that made you want to make movies, because that's what you're doing.
Well, live action, The Matrix, just like, I remember that as tons of bricks. It's just like, what is this? But that gave me, I think it's just like immersed me into, oh my God, I'm taking it. I'm in a trip, it's a journey, I think that's really the first movie that made me have that feeling. Amelie was just a big, big thing as well. It's all around the same time, like 95 to 98. I remember those, like all the 90s, maybe 97 to 2000, something like that period of time when I was just like end of my teenage years. Like there's so many movies that came out at this point that I was like, oh my God. But like for animation, I think Tarzan was the one because that's when I discovered animation. And the same year, Glenn Keane was doing, heading the teams for Tarzan in Paris. And so there was a lot of media around this in France. And I would see at the theater, when I went to see the movie, I would see his line test. They were playing his line test, like a pencil test everywhere. And just to me was like, what is this? This is magic, And I think that's where I really would say that this movie would just have kind of like threw me in that animation career path kind of thing.
Fantastic. Who's your favorite?
So it's still it's an amazing film.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but clearly that holds a very special.
It does, doesn't it? Who's your favorite animated character of all time?
Probably Lupin.
Lupin,
yeah.
He's an animated character?
Yeah.
Oh. But not when Omar Sy plays him, or not when...
No, not that one. But it's supposed to be...
the same guy. And in France, there's a Lupin...
of course. Yeah.
Because I know him from Romain Duris, and I know him from
Yeah. No, for sure. No, it's a character that was created in Japan, and it's Miyazaki did a movie called Castle of Cagliostro. It's his first feature film. Featuring this character. I think the character came from a TV show before that, but he just really brought to life the first feature.
But it's the same Lupin, the gentleman robber, the same.
Yeah,
the same.
Exactly.
Well, look at you now, being a gentleman.
Yeah. But like clearly, Bad Guys has been a lot influenced by that for sure. But again, I think you're asking me that question. I never thought about that question, and so it's very hard to say.
That's my job, Pierre Perifel. Listen, great to see you. Clearly a good guy making a film about bad guys. Really nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jason. That was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Ciao. And The Bad Guys is in cinemas now. What else can you watch then? Well, Coda's coming back to the theatres, as I mentioned, so you can go and get all sniffy and snobby about it there and go, oh, that's not the best film, is it? But if you haven't seen it, do so. Call me cheesy, I liked it, and it's great for teenagers, I'd say. They would really love it. There's True Things with Ruth Wilson, that's out on the theatres now. You can catch up with my interview from last episode about sex on screen with its director Harry Wootliff. And I'm still saying The Phantom of the Open is great fun, definitely worth seeing over the holidays. And for a date movie, grown-up date movie, The Worst Person in the World is one of the best of the year. So there's plenty to see at the movies. That's where the best stuff still is. Thanks to my guest Pierre Perifel and to Kate Dawkins for putting it all together. We'll play out with a track from another new film called One of These Days, which stars Peaky Blinders' The Ipcress Files' Joe Cole in a Texas town where competitors have to keep one hand on a truck for days on end, and the last man or woman standing wins the vehicle. It's an odd film, very artfully done, I have to say. And good on the new people at Studio Soho Distribution for putting it out there in cinemas. Little indie film out in the cinemas. It was a good night down at the premiere at Everyman Borough Yards. Joe Cole was there with me, and he was a charming guest at the Q&A, I thought. If you were there, it was great to meet you. Thanks for your support. Thanks for coming down there. Anyway, One of These Days closes with this Stranglers cover from Bedhead, so we'll play out with that. And I'll see you next week with my guest, the Fever Syndrome playwright, screenwriter and actor, Alexis Zegerman. Ta-da.
Every time, just like the last, on his ship, tied to the mast, to distant lands, takes both my hands, never a frown.